Hi, welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. Today we revisit a monthly theme that actually started the monthly themes is it's okay to fall. It's kind of punny since when this airs it'll be October, but a lot of times when we think about success, it's about only if statements or how we perceive what success may be in our lives. Today we have Amelia again returning with us. I'm so excited to have her back to share her insight on this theme. Thank you, Amelia. I know that the green screen is not working well with me, but I hope people will bear with it. But thank you, Amelia, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm so glad to be back here having a chat with you.
No problem. I just want to share with those who are in the United States, disclaimer, if you have a crisis situation, please seek appropriate professional help. The U.S. has a 1-800-273-8255. It's a national suicide prevention lifeline, but those around the world resources sometimes are scarce, but I always encourage those listening to find what is available because support looks different for everyone. Recovery is different for everyone. It's not all the same. George Bernard Shaw, this guy, I use his quotes a lot, but I'm going to use them again. He kind of says it right between the eyes. He says, life spent making mistakes is not only more honorable, but more useful than life spent doing nothing. I could kind of hear this guy say this to me, but at the same time, it's important to kind of look at that aspect. We get afraid of making mistakes, but we learn a lot from them. What's your take from this quote, Amelia?
I think making mistakes is really a part of life, right? Nobody lives in perfection.
No.
This idea of perfection is actually toxic. And this idea that we can live a life that is perfect without flaw is non-existent, because mistakes are a way that we show that it's a way that we're trying, a way that we move away from being stagnant. And if you're not trying, you're stagnant, right? You're not going anywhere. And progress is made by way of mistakes. And so I like to think of making mistakes and then not focusing on the old, but then building on the new, learning from the mistakes that we've made.
I think it also allows us to process things. We're very quick, like we want to fix it right away. And, being, a lot of times in marketing, that's the same thing, try to build people's urgency to get whatever you're trying to promote. But at the same time, a lot of times we don't even think for ourselves. So I feel like this allows us to make that mistakes, not be too afraid, don't rely on unfounded certainty. There really isn't. There's more uncertainty, but with uncertainty, it also allows hope. You can't have certainty with hope. That kind of weird how you say how I word it that way, but it's very true. If we know what was going to happen tomorrow, every single day, why would we need hope? Because we already know. But uncertainty allows that kind of progress to processing things, like you were saying. I remember last time you were here as a guest, we were paying tribute to PTSD Awareness Month. A lot of times with trauma, it's okay to fall does not resonate very positively. Like, it's okay to fall. I'm going through whatever trauma, but I think sometimes the biggest first steps is that. What is your experience when it comes to falling in your own recovery or what you've seen around you with people?
I think it's like saying that you're falling is it's a difficult concept to grasp because it's frustrating, right? You're not getting where you want to get to. And these setbacks are really a part of healing. And like there's no journey that's perfect. And I think a huge part of this, a huge component in healing is acceptance.
Yes.
And accepting where you are and accepting where you are in that specific moment in time. And being able to accept where you are, accept your setbacks and challenges that you're facing, and face them one day at a time. And don't beat yourself up, because all it takes is being present and taking it one day at a time, right? So being able to walk that journey.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel a lot of times we have to define what things mean for us. Defining words really matter. What is success? What is happiness? What is all these things? Because recovery can be messy. recovery is messy. A lot of times it's not clean. It's not like I get this treatment, I'm better. No.
Yeah.
I remember, I don't know, there's a cycle, the generic cycle of recovery. You have the non-contemplative, the contemplative, I think it's the plan, the action, and the maintaining. Obviously there's little adjustments to it, but a lot of times when in recovery, I could be in my maintenance phase, but then life event happens, and then back into my planning, and then action, and maintaining, and kind of cycle through that.
And it's a cycle through these things, right? To get through a day and get through your challenges.
Yeah, and I think when we're allowing ourselves to make mistakes, we kind of see things, and when we're not, emotions are good indicators, but not good masters. They should not be ones that lead us, but they should be ones that tell us a lot about what's going on. Slowing down and actually thinking, why am I angry all day today? Why am I not feeling well? And actually pausing for a moment. Actually,
I usually, I always say this: feelings are feelings. Feelings are not facts.
Yeah.
Like feelings indicate what's going on inside, but they're not the facts that we need to act on.
Yeah, and I think we miss a lot when we speed through, because sometimes usually it's really the derivative of what we're feeling. I'm upset, and and then when I go through it, I'm just like, well, I just felt left out. I felt not heard. That was basically the main focal point, but I had to go through all those layers to get there, because I was as upset at the post office person. But really, was it the post office person, or was it something inside me that was really bothering me for a long time? So defining words, my wife, she has this book. It says untranslatable words. Vacilando is Spanish. It says, which loosely means that my dad will correct me, because the Spanish is different in each region, but it emphasizes a journey, not the destination. I do like it, because sometimes I'll be like, with my wife, I'm like, let's just go out in the car. Let's go somewhere. I'm like, well, where? I'm like, I don't care. Let's just drive. Like open road mentality, like for a little bit. I feel it's helpful, but also in regards to recovery, it does allow that room to be okay to not be okay at times. Because a lot of times when we don't feel like it's okay to be okay, we try to rush into not making mistakes, and it's a missed opportunity. Why do you feel thinking of healing, of recovery as a journey? And, going back to this, Vacilando, what are your thoughts on all this concept? I know we've talked about in length. You're probably like, yeah, you're preaching to a choir, but it is something that a lot of times we skip over, because we're so urgently rushing all the time. We're never slowing down.
I think so. This healing is a tricky thing, because everyone wants to feel good, wants to feel better, right?
Yeah.
You want to be in a place of wellness, and you want that wellness seems to be a destination that you can achieve by doing ABC, and then you get there, and then you do the ABC, but you don't get there, and it's frustrating, because that's what was promised. That's my destination. But what is this destination actually? It's an elusive destination that doesn't exist. This idea of it being there's an end goal. And like we can reach there by doing certain steps. And I feel like I'm very I advocate for presence.
Yes.
Being present in the moment, and being there with your whole self in every moment, and taking each step as you go, and having that's having emphasis on the journey.
Yeah.
And taking it one day at a time. Right. And not looking at setbacks as like, you like quotes. So I'll give you one of the quotes that I like. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward.
Yes.
And that's where it is. Like, whatever the destination looks like, we need to pay attention to the journey, because this is the here and now. And this is what matters to reaching that state of wellness, or being well at all stages.
I like what you said, presence. Like before COVID, a lot of, you go to a restaurant, what do you see? I know I have a lot of nephew and nieces. They're on their phones or whatever, and we're not even talking to each other. We're just there. We're just existing. One thing, you look at COVID, and it has been a struggle. One of my friends who has been on the podcast, he lost his father on Christmas Day. And Christmas was his favorite day. And he was just I just recorded him recently, and it's interesting what he said, and I really resonated. Some people in his family are like, "Oh, I don't want to do anything that we used to do with him," and he's like, "I want to keep doing it to remember him." Kind of that kind of thing. So there's two trains of thoughts of that, but presence is so important. Like right now, I'm speaking to you, but a lot of times you talk to people, they're not really talking to you. They're just talking at you. They're not listening. They're just there. And I feel that's a lost art when you're in a room with 100 people and someone can talk to you and you feel like they're really listening.
Yeah.
And not
distracted. A lot of times we're going through the motions.
Yes.
And not really truly present in mind and space.
Yeah. It's interesting. We're really good at pretending, or not pretending, doing the talking points. I'm a church leader, and one of the things I've noticed is, people are good at talking points. They know what to say, the right words, but there's not substance. And one thing that I always said was, it was a quote also. It says, the best place to hide from God, per se, is in church or in religion. Because you're very good at doing the things that people think you should be doing, but it's not, there's no substance. And it's not a proselytizing, it's just a commentary of how we are. We blend in very well, but it's a connection to presence.
It's a code switching, right? We know how to behave in certain groups of people, or certain groups of, when you're with your church friends, you're like this. And then when you're with your school friends, you're like this. And when you're with your family, you're like this. We do code switching very efficiently.
Yeah. And we're very good actors at sometimes.
Yeah,
it's not like we know how to put our mask, but sometimes that can be problematic when we just need to pause and say, oh, that didn't work out, or I'm struggling with this. And then if you're constantly switching masks, your identity gets lost, and where your value and what you feel is important. And it's all about destination at that point. John Lennon said it this way: life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. I think that's very true. Like someone like there's a lot of moments like I do like to travel. I'm a little sad right now with everything going on, but when you go to places, there's this emphasis of planning, but you don't want to plan too much. You want that fluidity to have that option to just be present.
I think in healing, when we talk about healing, recovery, and there's this thought of like making plans too.
Yeah.
Like when I achieve this, then I will be better.
Yeah.
When I do these things, I will plan to do these things, and when I do them, I will be better. And there's this idea of perfection again.
Yeah.
That I will do these perfectly, and I will get there, and I will be happy. And things don't usually work out that way because life is life, and we need to be present in that specific moment to be able to experience it and then react and respond in that moment instead of what we had planned.
Yeah, right? The emphasis is usually about obtaining or getting somewhere, when it's really about becoming something else. And one thing that keeps changing is everything. My relationship with people change. People close to me, life changes, life events, you grow older, everything keeps changing. So it just makes sense that it's not about obtaining, because those things will change. What you prioritize, what you like, what you put as number one priority is maybe less so now. So as that changes, it's prudent to kind of look at it that way, as opposed to becoming something else versus obtaining something. Because you kind of, I think you're shortchanging yourself. And along the lines of substance use and just in recovery in general, there was this one study that I was reading, that addiction is not sobriety. So a lot of times people are like, well, addiction, the opposite of it is sobriety. I've seen a lot of substance use people that I know, that like, if every day is not using, what's the point? Like it gets kind of flat, it gets superficial. There has to be more. So this commentary was like, the opposite of addiction is connection, because we're asking the wrong questions. We're not asking why did you do this. We should be asking what happened, because usually it's not like about something, it's about something they feel they lost, and they fill it with sometimes something negative. So opposite of like we are connected beings. Even if we are introverts or extroverts, we need to connect. So I think this was an interesting commentary. What are your thoughts on connection within the aspect of recovery from your experience?
So I can speak to the point of addiction recovery because I've not experienced that.
Yeah.
But in my mental health, mental illness, and dealing with bipolar and PTSD, I think the human connection is one of the most important parts of my healing.
Yeah.
And having a support system of people who I'm able to reach out to, that's so important to support me through those difficult times, because at times the illness tells you that you're alone. The illness tells you that you are worthless. And the illness whispers all these things in your ears that you believe in that moment in time because there is something going on in your brain at the time, right?
Yeah.
And so having people around me that I can reach out to and say, hey, I'm having a hard time, and will you just sit with me? Or will you just be with me? Or will you just hear me out? Or whatever it is that I need in that moment in time has been a lifeline for me.
Yeah.
And therein is also a challenge, right? Reaching out is a challenge.
Yeah.
Creating those connections is one thing. Mm-hmm. And then being able to employ them when you need them, that's another story altogether. And that requires courage, that requires practice, and that requires reaffirmation from the other person that help is available and that they are available to you.
And I think that really hits the nail right where I wanted to go with this. Was there's a difference between the house and the home, and connections. When you have when you start building those connections, you start building a home with the people around you. A house is just a place, it doesn't really mean that you connect well. And I feel connections are hugely important, because at the end of the day, I feel in recovery, you have a group of people. We're talking right now, but in a support group, or you have people who have experienced similar traumas or mental health symptoms or experiences. Nothing changes in their life, like tangibly, if you look outside, but they feel better, and a lot of times they do better. Why? I feel like for me, it's a mystery, because a lot of times we look at people going through all this stuff, but they tell all their story and they share in a safe home, place, and there's healing going on there, whether you're faith-based or not. It is apparent that there's something intrinsically healing about sharing someone's story and being heard. One of the biggest complaints I hear in groups is, I don't feel heard. A lot of times parents who have kids with mental illness, there's a communication issue. The kid doesn't feel like he's heard, so he learns or she learns something a way of connecting, so they kind of act out. And it's not because they want to, or they're kind of selfish. It's just they don't feel like they could get attention that way, and the parents are lost in the communication. So
I think that's.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. You go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
No, I was just saying that this is the thing with the lack of awareness and understanding about mental illness or addiction, or, any kind of illness that's taboo and has a stigma in our society. There's lack of awareness and understanding, and therefore leads to these maladaptive behaviors. Leads people to maladaptive behaviors. And that's why I've agreed to speak to you twice now, because I think these are the conversations that we have, that we normalize these things. We normalize mental illness, and we normalize this amongst our society, so that we can better understand those who are going through it, and be a lifeline for those people, and be supportive in a way that's needed, not the way that we understand it on our own. If I'm making any sense.
You are, and I like it, because I had this one talk with someone, I don't know, when I started the podcast. And I did Revive Ministry face to face before COVID, and I just remember, they're like, well, do you know the right techniques, all this stuff, or something? Yeah. And I'm like, no, but I'm gonna have the conversation anyway, because the thing is, that's the point. The point is not everything I say is gonna be on point, because the thing is, recovery is different. So some of the things I say, or even you say, will stick better to people than others. You know what I mean? So I feel it's not about getting it right the first time. It's about continuing the conversation. And I really
It's
appreciate.
continuing the conversation.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I like it because these conversations I have with you and other guests, and I love having returning guests because we just expand and continue the conversation. And I think that promotes a very safe place because I don't have everything figured out. I struggle still to this day. I still use my coping skills, and and I feel, and it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes and have those days when you're like, oh, I didn't go well today. I'll try again tomorrow. It's okay to not be okay. I remember George Bernard Shaw again. He's going to wrap us up with this one quote. Well, we have. He says 2 things define you: the patience when you have nothing, and the attitude when you have everything. It's important to know and define things in your life, what's important to you, but also understand that you said acceptance. I think acceptance is wonderful. It's understanding that we're not going to know everything. We're not going to have everything figured out. Things going to be unfinished, and that's okay. We're going to keep moving forward and keep having these conversations and build on our connections because it's much more healing when we have a home versus a house. So as we close, Amelia, any final thoughts you would like to share with those listening? Anything you want to share in general? I know you do a lot of blogging. I know you do a lot out there. Anything you want to share? Everything will be in the notes for those listening. I do always appreciate every single guest that comes. It's never easy, making time, but also I do appreciate those passionate to continue the conversation. So, Amelia.
So my final thoughts on the subject we're talking about today, it's okay to fall.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's being able to forgive yourself for shortcomings and being able to respect yourself enough to know that you can get better and it will get better as long as you keep moving, and that mistakes are just a part of life and that doesn't define you.
Yeah.
However, if you allow it to, it will define the path that you take moving forward.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important for us to hold ourselves up and be okay with not being okay sometimes.
Yeah. And just to even emphasize even more, it's not about every shot we don't take we will miss. So I remember Ringo, she says it's not about missing, it's about continuing each day, and it's not about failing or falling, it's about getting up and building those support that could help you, but also knowing what works and what doesn't. Thank you, Amelia, for joining the conversation. I always appreciate just knowing and having these topics that seem so basic. I know it's a little punny. I did that on purpose before, but I think it really sticks. So October, I usually try to do this because it's after the summer. People are back in school. People are holidays are coming up, and holidays are stressful. And
it's also a time where people generally suffer from mental illness and seasonal affective disorder. And so I think it's perfect timing. Yeah, and I just also wanted to add, for people who are listening who don't suffer from mental illness or any kind of, if you are able to be a support system, you are able to be a lifeline to somebody, take that opportunity and take it with care, with patience, and know that whatever you're doing to help needs to be what the person needs and instead of what you think the person needs. And that way you can actually help someone into healing. And I think that's such an important thing in the healing process.
I agree. And I think it's also, even if you think, and a lot of times I may see something where I'm like, oh, if only this person do this, it'll be better for them. A lot of times the process of recovery, it's not you doing it for them.
It's very personal and very individual.
The person has to be actively participating. You're not doing it for them. So sometimes the best thing you do, Amelia, is just to be there. Not saying a word.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Amelia. I want to share those who are listening that you go find all the updates on Revive Ministries on the website, reviveministriesfl.com. So goodbye for now. Just for now. We're going to have returning guests again. But with this last quote, it's from Waldo Emerson. It says, the greatest glory in life lies not in never failing, but rising every time.